Hey, it's the Advocate, and today I'm honored and blessed to have a friend of mine, Frederick Douglas Bussey, as our guest today on the CJ Cares podcast. We go back to our college days. You know, we used to play basketball together against, I'll be honest with you too. You know, every time I saw you, I tried to kill you on the court. You know, I was like, yo, he's on the team. I gotta go at him. I don't care, but we had wars on the basketball court, and strangely enough, I think that basketball has helped both of us, in business, learning how to play with a team and being an integral part of something, of winning something. So today, Frederick, I'm glad to have you on a part of CJ Cares podcast. Welcome.
Yo, man, it's a pleasure to be here. I really appreciate the honor.
Definitely. Now let's talk real quick about, your educational path. I mentioned we went to college together. We went to Oakwood University. It was Oakwood College back then. And it's the HBCU. How was your experience there? How would you describe your experience?
Yo, so it's funny because looking back, and I always felt like those college years were some of the best years of my life, just in terms of the people that I met, a lot of experiences that I had, and there was some good and bad ups and downs, but it was very formative for me in terms of, my development from going from a young man to a man. And the funny thing about it is that I went to college because I was actually pursuing a career in music. A lot of people even knew that I sang in a group, and I was a songwriter and producer. And so we were always pursuing that career in music. Back then, the path was you had to put together a demo and pitch it to the record labels and hope that somebody could sign you, get a manager and all that stuff. It's very different now. But that was what it was. But I went to college kind of as a backup to music, and I still ended up going into music later on. And I think I had mixed feelings about college. The degree that I had, I was frustrated when I came out and I realized that I didn't need a degree to get the job that I was qualified to get. So I spent $60,000 on student loans and 5.5 years in college, and I had some bitterness about that, but everything has its plan. And one of the most beautiful things about it was a lot of the relationships that I have with people, that go back 30 years almost. And like with you, like with so many other people. And I know people all over the world, that I can go just about anywhere and have somebody that I know that I can link up with. And so it's a good thing. I appreciate the experience. Whatever I feel about college these days.
Exactly. And it seems like so many moons ago where we were there and, we was running up and down on campus. Now we family men, and times have changed. Now we're in a different bracket, So how have you been, over the years? How are you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm blessed now. I've been married for 13 years, got 3 kids, 3 beautiful children, business, living here in Atlanta. It's amazing how life can unfold for you, and a lot of the things that I would have wanted for myself when I was, coming out of college, and yet wasn't quite sure I would see how that would happen. It's funny how life has unfolded, and I've really been blessed. God's really good, and I'm grateful for where I am, and I'm grateful for the path because I know I don't know exactly where it's going to take me, but I know that where it's headed is a great direction, because anywhere that God is leading you, you're going to end up in a great space. And so, I've had a lot of ups and downs that, at some point I'll tell that part of the story as well. But it's been really a great experience, I say, because of where I've ended up and who it has kind of developed me into.
Given the nature of what you just were speaking on, do you think that when your children become of age to go to college, that you would send them to Oakwood? or advocate that they go to a HBCU?
Well, my wife and I have talked about it. So we homeschool our children now, right? And what we say, what I've said is that I'm not going to force them to go to college. I think that it really depends on where they are headed with their own life in terms of their talents and their interests and things of that nature, right? So, for instance, my son is, he's really heavy into animals. He knows more about animals and dinosaurs than any living person I know. He's constantly telling us about, new animals and new dinosaurs he never heard of. So if that continues to be his interest, then that might be something I say, well, you can go ahead and you can pursue that career there. There's a ton of more information and knowledge you can learn to be solidified in that area. But I am also a huge advocate of entrepreneurship, obviously, based on my background. And so regardless of whether they go to college or not, we're training them to understand business, to understand money, to be in a position where they can do whatever they want to do whenever they want to do it, and money is not going to be an option. It's not going to be an obstacle to them, or even a deciding factor. Like a lot of times people decide, well, I'm going to go to college here versus here because I don't have the money. I'm going to wait to start a business because I don't have the money. And really what we would ideally like for them to be positioned to do is to be able to take whatever path that best serves them, that best aligns with their gift and allows them to be able to stretch out and stretch their wings and go from there.
That's beautiful. Now, I know you mentioned about entrepreneurship. Can you explain to me what Icon Status is? What was your vision and how did you get into it?
Yeah, Icon Status has evolved from where it originally started, but is currently a coaching and consulting agency where we work with entrepreneurs to support them in scaling their businesses to 7, 8, 9 figures and beyond. So we also work with larger organizations or corporations to be able to offer them leadership training, coaching, executive coaching, and consulting around branding and marketing to be able to accentuate their message and communication to the market. So it actually evolved from a PR agency when I started out. So when I left the music industry as a songwriter and producer, before I left, I transitioned from being on the creative side to being an artist manager and working as a marketing director at a small label. And from there, one of the next jobs that I got was as a junior publicist. I was working with some celebrities, and that led me to eventually starting my own PR agency. I named it Icon Status for people who wanted to be iconic in their own right. And I've always loved the name and always thought it applied because I believe that whatever we are out to do, we should do it at the highest level, right? We should make it iconic. So that is the vision for the business and the organization. How can we help people to be as iconic as possible in whatever they're doing?
That's excellent. And how do you help leaders or organizations unleash their hidden potential and connect more powerfully with their ideal clients?
Well, one of the things that we love to do is help people get clear on what they want, get clear on their goals. And we have a process we call target practice, right? Where we take them through the systematic process of unleashing what that goal is and the hidden potential of the business. And a lot of times it's because people are overlooking certain things, right? There is a book by Ryan Holiday called The Obstacle is the Way. And a lot of times the things that we think are standing in the way of what we are trying to do are actually the opportunity that could set us free, that could propel us forward. And so helping people to kind of position themselves from a slightly different angle, to look at things a little bit differently, to ask a different question. I have a coach who has this quote. He says that the question is pregnant with the answer. And so when you know the right questions to ask, you know how to get the right answer. And the right answer is not that there is a right or wrong per se. It is that it is the way that is going to lead you to where you want to go. The direction is going to unleash for you, open up that path forward. Because a lot of people, when they come to us, they're just confused. They're stuck. Maybe they're not getting the momentum that they want, and it's kind of slow going, or it's not going fast enough. And there is a speed of success that you want to be able to have, right? Because as it said, you can't get rich slow. And also, if you are on a certain trajectory, if you got a certain size in your business, you can't go too slow, because it starts to eat away at your resources. It starts to eat away at your talent and your team, and a lot of those things happen. So how can we help you to optimize what you're doing? And that's through understanding what are the questions to ask, what are the frameworks that we can use to be able to adjust the lens that you're creating your vision through when you're moving forward in that way.
I was doing some research on some of your literature and things of that nature, and I noticed that you have something that's called the apex effect. Can you explain a little bit about what is the apex effect, and how can you use it to help people?
Yeah. I'm actually working on a book around that concept. We kind of evolved it, but the idea essentially is that there are what are known as market leaders, and then there are what are known as category of one businesses, right? And a category of one business is one that has achieved what I call singularity. And they use the apex effect basically to establish themselves as the top of mind leader in whatever space. So you got Apple, you got Google, you got Amazon, right? There are hundreds, if not thousands, of companies that work in the tech spaces and in their different sectors. But when we think of the leaders, we think of the ones, they are category of ones. They are the Amazon of that space. If you want to define yourself, I want to be the Apple or the Amazon or the Google of this. And so there is a way that you can do that, creating that effect in people's mind, reverse engineering the brand that you want people to have. And so that comes into, we have a model we call scalosity model, which essentially is about mindset, influence, and leverage. And how do you triangulate those three things to create this effect in the marketplace, in the minds of your audience? So they're always thinking of you as the person. So even for your business, right, whatever it is that you're doing, you want people to think before they even, this will sound dated, before they go to the yellow pages, right, and they're trying to find something in that category, or they're Googling somebody, instead of them having to Google it, instantly you come to mind because you created the apex effect in their mind.
Okay, I definitely understand a little bit better now. Now, why would you say it is important, the building of someone's brand, building of a brand? Why is that important?
Well, again, it goes back to the apex effect and creating that singularity, right? I use the word singularity because the definition means that it is the quality of being the one, right? And so a lot of people misunderstand what branding is. A lot of people think it's a logo or a website, or it's your brand colors, it's getting business cards. There's a lot of the things that people do when they start out a business are things that have actually very little to do with your brand, because a brand is not what you say it is. It's what other people say you are. It's how they feel about what you do and what you are, right? And so establishing a brand really means focusing on what is the outcome? What do I want people to say about who I am, right? What is the transformation that I'm creating for people, the value, the outsized value that I'm creating for other people that allows them to feel like, oh, this is the one, this is the person, this is the brand, and they feel it before they even say it. But it creates this reciprocal effect, right? Where they're coming back and constantly consuming your products, they're constantly rehiring you or buying your services. They're constantly using you or thinking of you as the leader, even if they don't buy your products, but they think of you as the one that everybody else in the marketplace should be chasing. And so to be able to do that, you want to create in people's mind this emotional attachment, this emotional resonance to what you're doing. And that requires actually more outside in engineering, more thinking and listening about what people want, understanding the thing behind the thing that they want, right? So when you know that, and almost when you know your customer more deeply than they know themselves, then you are able to establish a brand that resonates above and beyond what you could probably even pay money for, right? Because it means something to people. We talk a lot about brand loyalty, and even if you're building a personal brand, right? There are people that we're attached to. That's really, really powerful these days, because people can be on and off the ship with you. You know, sometimes you might say something, or you might get caught up in, I don't want to say a scandal, but there are all types of things that can conspire against you sometimes. And as we're human, we can make mistakes. Building a strong personal brand allows you to weather that storm. It allows you to be able to build something that's above and beyond you. And then that's a personal brand, but then the brand of your business, it has to be able to stand that test of time. It has to have so much value for people that they're not just going to cut you off, because cutting you off or cutting off your brand will be like cutting off a piece of themselves. You know, it would be like putting themselves at a disadvantage that is more than just an inconvenience. It's actually hurting them because they can't use your product. They don't have access to you anymore.
Okay, thank you for that. I want to segue into something really quick. It being Black History Month, is there a specific African-American entrepreneur that you're fond of, and why?
Oh yeah, I would say there are several. I really like Robert Smith. Of course, he's a billionaire, but a lot of the ways that he thinks about things in terms of his Vista Equity Partners, the businesses that he's built. I love the way he talks about things. You asked me, and as soon as I started to say it, I can see his face, but I can't say his name. But he's actually a billionaire on the low that people don't know a lot about. He's currently in the process of building the biggest tower in New York. It's called the Freedom Tower, and there is no Black-owned construction company that's ever built, or Black-owned tower that's been a skyscraper that's been built in New York. And so he's going to be one of the ones that builds the first one. And his story is pretty amazing, how he started at DC and came from essentially nowhere, build his first building, to own his first property and develop it now. So he's worth more than $700 million. And he's done some incredible things up on the East Coast in terms of real estate and the processes that he's established, and sort of a precedent for a lot of other entrepreneurs, and create other opportunities for them, working with other Black vendors and things of that nature, to be able to give them. So I love listening to them. I love, there's a young man who built a company called Bevel. I did not get a lot of sleep last night, so I'm forgetting everybody's name. But he is an incredible entrepreneur. Bevel is a facial, they create razor blades and clippers and facial products for African-American men. And he's created an incredible company. And then Calendly, the founder of Calendly, actually is an African-American man as well. And I want to give a shout out to Dr. Hadia Green, because she is a entrepreneur who actually has created a process to cure cancer. She's trying to find funding for that as well. And I always want to shout her out whenever I can, because whatever platform to be able to expose her, and more people know about her, so that you can know that she's created something that's really incredible. And I think that she's also a tremendous inspiration to Black entrepreneurs and to female entrepreneurs everywhere as well.
What does it mean when a business owner scales their business?
So scaling is essentially taking a thing that you can do once and then having a way to do it repeatably, predictably over time, right? At scale. So if I can do it once, can I do it twice? If I can do it twice, can I do it 4 times? So if I can make 1 sale a week, can I multiply that to 5 sales a week? Can I multiply that from 5 sales to 20 sales to 100 sales? Like, that's at scale. And scaling is actually, it's a natural principle. It's a universal principle, right? So I like to liken it to the fact that everything in nature is about being able to scale. You have a man and a woman, they can have a child. And so when you have a child, now you've increased your family. You've gone from one person to 3 people, right, through the value of that relationship. But you can have 5 children. Each of those children go out and have their own family. And now you can go from 1 person to 2 people to a family of 5 to a family of 25 because they've married and had children, right? If you look at apples, in every apple, there's about 8 to 12 seeds in that apple, right? If you plant that seed will give you a tree. That tree gives you another 200 to 300 apples, right? Actually, when they're organic, it's closer to 500 to 700 apples per tree, right? Which means that now 800 apples times 12 seeds. Let's just make it 10 for the sake of easy math. Now you got 8,000 seeds from that one tree that came from that one seed, right? So inside of every apple is an orchard. And that is the natural principle of scaling. What most of us do when we come to our businesses, and we're thinking, a lot of times when we start, we may either have a big dream or we're thinking very small. And so then it seems difficult to scale. But what you really want to do is you want to find out what are the seeds in my business that every time I take a bite from this apple, right, it reveals a seed that I can plant that can turn into an orchard that gives, fruit to more apples with more seeds. So in every apple, there is an orchard. And in every orchard, there's a multitude of orchards. And that's essentially scaling. How do you take your business and multiply it, right? How do you apply the systems and the leverage to be able to work smarter, not harder? And so that a lot of times entrepreneurs think that in order for me to grow, I've got to work harder because maybe it took me working 15 hours a day to get up to $100,000 a year, right? But there's only 24 hours in a day. So you can't work twice as hard to get to 200,000. You can't work 10 times as hard to get to 1 million. You have to think differently about that whole process and being able to scale. And once you understand that and you're able to look at your business in that way, you can start to apply that apple orchard principle to your business and scale in that way.
I was looking at a few statistics. It seems as if a lot of businesses are failing, within year 3 of starting. Are you seeing trends of businesses, entrepreneurs simply just not having the correct information to have sustainability?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of it comes out of the foundation, either why you start the business or your information around starting the business. So typically for most entrepreneurs, when they start a business, they're thinking of it as a job. And so they apply that same level of work ethic, right? And so the leverage is really the leverage of one person. How much time do I have? How much energy do I have? What are my talents, my skills? How much money do I have? All of that is whatever I have in my hand is what I can do to build this business. But essentially, it's not a business until it no longer becomes in your hand. And now it has become these systems that you've been able to apply, right? And typically because they don't learn fast enough, they run out of runway, right? Either run out of money, they run out of time and energy, they burn out, or they don't stick with the system or the plan long enough to allow it to bear fruit. Oftentimes, if you start a business because you quote unquote have to, right? You got to pay the bills, you got to make the rent. And if it's not doing that, in a few months, you're going to exhaust your, excuse me, you're going to exhaust your resources, your savings, whatever the case may be. And so it's hard to continue to do that when you don't have a steady paycheck coming in. Or say you borrowed some money, you were able to get a business loan or something of that nature, and you weren't able to pay it back. Not having certain systems in place can really hinder you from being able to grow at the rate you need to be able to do what you need to do with enough momentum to create what I call escape velocity, right? So just like a rocket, it has to have a certain level of speed in order to break free from the atmosphere of gravity around the Earth or around the planet. You got to be able to do that as well. There are always going to be forces that are trying to drag you down. Bills, expenses, time, lack of focus, whatever it is. You got to be able to break free of that. And 97% of businesses don't ever really get there because it is a different mindset. You know, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki talks about this, you know, how you have to have a different mindset to go from an employee to an entrepreneur. And it's very, very true. And most people never really make the shift, even though I would say these days it's easier than ever to become an entrepreneur and to be successful because you just have so much information that's out there and so many resources that are available to you.
Now, I know that, you know, we were dealing with the pandemic, and also we're just in a different era. You know, we're in the era of what they will call AI, and a lot of businesses feel threatened, workforces feel threatened, and a lot of businesses were created during the pandemic, dealing with COVID and things of that nature, but a lot of businesses failed. What are some of the reasons why you think some were successful during the pandemic? What are reasons do you think that a lot of these businesses folded?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. One of them would be that there were a lot of businesses that were poised to fail over time anyway. What COVID did was COVID accelerated a lot of the effects of things, both good and bad. A lot of the evolutions of business in the world were accelerated, some necessarily so, because of the shutdowns and because of the way that the world had to think differently about moving and interacting. And so a lot of businesses were already not prepared for that. They were failing already. It just accelerated that. COVID was a phenomenon where we saw decades happening in weeks, right? So we saw businesses grind to a halt that had been around for decades, that were probably on their way to failing. But because of the shutdowns and things that happened, they met that demise a lot sooner. And part of that reason that happened was because they were not equipped. They didn't have the thinking. They didn't have the business intelligence to be able to pivot, right? If they had, they would have already done a lot of the things that they had to do or should have done during COVID. They would have done it years ahead of time. And there are still many businesses that have not done that. They weathered the storm. They got some bailouts from the government. They were able to push off the effects of that. But by and large, many of them are still not in a position, and they're struggling through that, and they're going to deal with that result here in the next year or coming years. But for those who were able to succeed, those who were able to start their businesses in the pandemic, they were able to pivot and lean into the headwinds that were coming. They saw the opportunity instead of the obstacle. You know, I just did a training where I was talking about how I learned this concept from Gary Keller, the founder of Keller Williams Realty. But he talks about how buffalo are one of the few animals on the planet who understand a different level of behavior, a different type of behavior when storms come, right? So when a storm forms on the plains, most animals will hunker down for shelter or they'll run away. And what buffalo do is they charge into the storm because the fastest way to get to the other side of the storm is to go through it. And so the same thing happened in the pandemic. Those businesses that were poised to be able to charge into the storm, they could weather it. They were clear about what they were doing. They understood the dynamics of what was shifting in the landscape, right? People are talking a lot about AI. AI has been on the horizon for years, and people have been talking about it for years. But a lot of the things that have kind of seeded the ground for it to be able to blossom so quickly is because of the pandemic. People are much more tuned into these tools, creating more content, reaching people on a global scale instead of just locally. And so the need for it is more prevalent in people's minds, and it creates more of an opportunity. And there are a lot of people that are afraid of it because they say, well, it's going to replace my job. But if you think about it, in history, we've always had jobs that have been replaceable. We used to have chimney sweeps. We used to have teams that swept the streets physically, right?
Right.
We used to have people that delivered milk by hand from door to door, right? And so those jobs went away as new innovations came about in the industry. And so it can feel scary to people. I mean, AI is kind of a different beast, but either you're going to learn how to manipulate it or you're going to be manipulated by it. Either you're going to know how to use it and be a technician with it and master it, or it very well could replace you. But that's essentially, I think that's the mindset of the generation of leaders that we have to have now. You have to be ready to pivot and lean into the headwinds. You got to be able to charge into the storm, or the storm is gonna overtake you.
So let's imagine I'm an entrepreneur. I started a business. I'm doing well. I had a good first year, and I have the opportunity to hire people. And I'm trying to figure out I'm trying to determine the right people to hire to drive up sales and profit. How would I go about doing that?
Well, the first question I would ask you is where do you want to go? The team that you build depends on the goal that you have, right? So let's take it back to basketball. If I want to build a championship, I know I've got to have certain things. I've got to have players that are committed to playing defense. I've got to have players that are going to be durable and healthy. I've got to have people that can score, right? I've got to have a coach that can make everybody align, strong personalities, because the more talented people are, you're going to need someone that at the helm that can really galvanize them, can lead them, can empower them to do what they do without everybody getting in each other's way. And so really stepping back and thinking about what are the pieces that I need, because at different phases of your business, you're going to need different pieces. So initially, you may need people that are just going to take some of the lower hanging fruit off of your plate, right? Some of the mundane tasks, so you can focus on more of the high level, high value things. I did a training about this a little while ago as well, though. If you want to build a 1% company, you need 1% talent, which means that two things have to happen. One, you have to become a 1% leader, right? And the other thing is that you have to create an environment that's going to attract 1% talent. They think different than other people, right? And so you've got to be able to create an environment where they feel comfortable, where they know they can thrive, and where they feel rewarded by the work that they're doing. And so if you're looking at that, look at your business and break it down and say, where are the gaps? Where are we not yet at 1%? And it doesn't mean you have to be perfect. It means that you need to be looking at a 1% vision, a 1% opportunity, right? What are you doing that is unique to what everyone else is doing that will call out to them and say, hey, I want to be here? Because one of the things that's hidden, even when you're trying to overpay for talent, if you can afford to do that, right? Not everybody can, but you don't always have to overpay for talent if you can give them something that is more rewarding along the way. People want to be a part of something that matters, right? People want to be on a championship team. Losing sucks, And so the same thing in sports happens in regular life. If I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m. and take my kids to daycare and drive for an hour to work and not see my wife all day or not see my husband all day and have to trudge the drudgery of the other things that go around that, those 8 hours in the middle, right? If I am going to work or if I'm working remotely, those 8 hours or so in the middle need to be significant and rewarding to me. I need to feel like I'm moving forward in my life. I need to feel like I'm leaving something behind in my path. And so if you're helping people to do that, I would say that you're always going to be finding and attracting great people, right? You're always going to be on the lookout because you're building something that's significant and meaningful. And it's not just about the dollars. It's not just about, hey, we made 7 figures. Hey, we built this big company or whatever. It's about we did something that will stand the test of time. We did something that changed the world. It shifted the trajectory of humankind in maybe a small way, but a significant and meaningful way.
Now I know, now you just talking about building. Most entrepreneurs have a similar issue, and that's finances. And having startup cash or having money to sustain the business they already have. What are some investment steps entrepreneurs can take to build wealth?
Well, this is actually a great question, because I think not enough people think of their business as an investment tool for wealth. They think of the money that they get from it as that. But a business is a great investment vehicle once you start to see it that way, because especially in the United States, our tax code, essentially our country was built for people to get rich. It's amazing, because if you see so many people that come from other countries to America, they're able to build businesses so much easier because they can see the value that a lot of people that are born here take for granted, right? The tax code is approximately 6,000 pages. Only about 200 or less are actually dedicated to W-2 employees. The rest of that tax code, some 5,800 so pages, are dedicated to helping businesses be able to thrive. And so there are all kind of loopholes and incentives for people to build their businesses, but most people don't know about them, take advantage of them, or whatever. You don't have to be an expert in taxes. What you do have to understand is there's a difference between being an employee and being taxed first and spending what's left, and building a business where you spend what you make and then pay taxes on what's left. And so the incentive there should shift your mind to think about how I can make different investments. An investment can be simply, I'm buying more equipment, I'm buying a new software tool for my company, I'm buying new furniture, I'm doing a retreat, I'm hiring a business coach, or whatever the case may be. These are all investments that you're making to be able to grow your business. In the United States, the government wants you to be able to take that money and put it into the economy first. They'd rather have you do that, because that's how the engine of the economy runs. And so they're incentivizing that. Now, the other part of that too is that when it comes to wealth is the ability for money to be able to grow on its own, so to speak. Again, the apple in the orchard example, right? How do I put $1 in and I can spin out $100, right? $10, even $1.10, because if I do that over time, it's going to compound. And so if you're starting to think about your business in that way, even your employees are investments. And a lot of business owners see employees as an obstacle. They think, I've got to hire these people are dragging me down, they're costing me so much money. But every employee that you hire should be worth 2, 3, 5, 10x what you're paying them. And once you understand that value, the better employees that you find, the greater the return on that investment. So being able to pour that into your business constantly over and over again, using your business as a way to acquire other businesses or other investment vehicles, things of that nature. All those things help to be able to grow your money. So you put that investment on the front end, and over time, every dollar starts to pay for another $10 to bring that in, etc.
Got you. What do you think it takes for an entrepreneur to launch a successful business? I know there's a lot of components to it.
There are, but I think at the foundation of it is mindset. The way you think about your business will dictate everything that you're able to create through and from your business. Most people fail because they have the wrong mindset around it, and they're not able to make the shift fast enough. Those who succeed think differently. And maybe you see the memes that people put on Instagram or wherever, and they talk about how poor people think differently than rich people. Well, rich people more often than not are entrepreneurs, right? Or have some sort of entrepreneurial mindset. And inevitably, the way that you think about things is going to dictate the outcomes that you have in your life. And so if you want different outcomes in your business, if you want a different outcome for your life, you need to be thinking about how you're thinking, right? It's very meta, but think about your thinking. You've got to understand what your mindset is about certain things. And having help to be able to think about that, being surrounded by the right people who think on that different level, right? Being a part of masterminds, coaching groups, entrepreneurial forums, going to entrepreneurial conferences and events, being exposed to these ideas so that you're constantly growing and evolving is absolutely essential. If you're not doing that, you're setting yourself up for failure. You know, you got to be able to be in a position where you can evolve in your thinking from one day to the next, because there's always going to be a fire. There's always going to be stuff that comes up. And if you're not able to adapt to it, if you're not able to adjust, to pivot on the fly, to do whatever it takes, because of the limited thinking that you have, then you are essentially cooking a recipe for disaster.
What trends are you currently seeing for entrepreneurs? Are you seeing an uptick in entrepreneurs starting businesses and needing these services, or is it about the same or decline?
Well, to be honest with you, I haven't looked at statistics. We do know that during periods of recession or whatever, that a lot more businesses are built, right? We know that more entrepreneurs are created in times of depression and recession than any other periods. And it's always interesting. It's kind of counterintuitive, because you would think we've had such a period of prosperity and easy money flowing. A lot of people, you know, it was easy for them to start businesses and things of that nature. But going back and looking over history, you'll see that typically the greater businesses, the ones that are outsized category 1 type businesses, they actually are started in periods of economic depression or recession. And so I think that's a trend that is going to continue, because human psychology is what it is. It kind of goes back to the buffalo charging the storm. When things get tough, most people hunker down or they run away to safety, whereas those who are truly equipped with the right mindset are going to find a way regardless of what happens. And so that's a trend that I think continues. Another thing that I'm seeing though, and is just that because of the evolution, the speed at which things have evolved over the past 5 to 10 years, we're living in a whole new world right now. And to be honest with you, there's never been an easier time in human history to get wealthy. It doesn't mean that it's easy, but it's never been easier, because you have more things at your disposal. And so because of that, conversely, actually, it's funny, but you'll have people that are making more excuses. There'll be more entitlement. There'll be people that'll still quit, and people that'll fail at the same rate, because it looks so easy when other people do it, because they've been able to utilize these tools and the environment that we have, but they lack the fundamentals. They lack the mindset, and there is a stick-to-itiveness that you have to have, right, to be able to grind this out. A lot of the people that you see successful at the highest level are actually just there because they were able to stick it out the longest, right? They just didn't quit. And when you're able to do that, it creates an opportunity for you to be able to succeed. That's a trend that I see continuing. AI is going to create an entire other industry of service providers and engineers. There are going to be people that are getting more jobs in AI because of the prevalence, and because there's going to be more funding that's going to flow to it, right? So if you want to start, a lot of companies that have had businesses are switching to AI and calling themselves AI to be able to attract more funding and things of that nature. I don't know that's necessarily the wisest thing to do, but we're seeing that happen. And I think if you're paying attention to what AI is doing, I think if you're paying attention to what the metaverse and things of that nature are happening. And I also think if you're paying attention to some of the dirty businesses, some of the real world businesses that get neglected because everybody wants to move into tech, whether that's agriculture or construction or things of that nature, you're going to see an opportunity there to be able to flourish as well if you understand how to seize that moment and find the gaps in the market.
What advice would you give to someone who's just starting out?
It would be to absolutely surround yourself with as many people that are ahead of you, that are already having a level of success. If you can find a millionaire, find a way to work with them, to intern, mentor, hire a coach. Be surrounded by those people, because the leaps and bounds that you will take in your business and the level of success you'll be able to achieve as compared to trying to do it by yourself, it'll be second to none. I can't even describe the ways that I've been able to level up in my own business over the last couple of years because of the people that I've been around, the conversations that I've been involved in, the advice that I've gotten, me starting my own podcast and being able to interview certain people and build relationships with them. People say your network is your net worth, but really the relationships and the information that you're getting is so vital, right? And it's because there's a difference between information and intelligence, information and wisdom. There's knowledge and there's the application of knowledge, and your ability to apply what you're doing, what you're learning, is only going to be magnified when you're around people that are constantly doing that. And most importantly, don't erect all the mental barriers to being successful. Most people get in their own way. And we know that we get in our own way because we say it over and over again. If I could just get out of my own way, if I could just figure out in my head, if I could just be clear about what I'm doing, right? Well, being around those other people, they can see through much more quickly what you're doing, what you're not doing, what you could be doing. And they can help you to be more successful a lot faster because they've been there, and they're also surrounded by other people that are ahead of them, that have mentored them, that have taught them things, and they're constantly experimenting and learning. And when you can navigate that mindset, you're not constantly putting yourself in a position where you are your biggest enemy. You are your biggest stumbling block, because you're going to have the support. It's going to be a rare thing if you're doing it by yourself to be able to succeed when you're not surrounded by those type of people.
Do you advise that everyone should get a business coach?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'll admit that not every business coach is the right coach. Some people will hire a coach, or they'll go to a program or whatever and feel like, well, it didn't work or whatever. And there's multiple reasons why that may happen. But having someone that you can be accountable to, having somebody that can see the flaws or the gaps in your thinking, that can challenge that and can push you to work through things, is an exponential return on the money. You got to be able to do it. And you may or may not believe that you can afford to, but you can afford not to. What I would encourage everyone to do is not think about what it's costing you in terms of the money that comes out of your pocket. Think about what the value is that you're going to be able to create because you're able to grow faster. You're not going to be making the same mistakes that you would make bumping your head against the wall by yourself. And you're going to be able to have a greater runway because you're not going to be as prone to quit, because it can be discouraging. You're going to fail. You're going to have stuff that's not going to work. But being able to have somebody that can hold your hand sometimes, that can push you when they need to push you, that can tell you to pump your brakes when you need to pump your brakes, to kind of give you that perspective is invaluable. It's invaluable. I can't even qualify. I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in coaching, and I can't even quantify the value of it, because it just being able to know that I have a conversation, a container on my calendar where I can go and I can bring questions, thoughts, whatever, and I can work through that stuff every week. Yeah, it's great. And then it really, not only does it motivate you, but it gives you an anchor to be able to think back to, we had this conversation about this. This is what I should be doing. oh, I can bring this question to this person, but now I also maybe have a framework for thinking through things, right? And so, yeah, I coach people. Yes, I consult with businesses, but I have multiple coaches for different things as well to support me, because it's invaluable.
What can a prospective client expect from Icon Status? So what stage should they reach out to you for help? And what can they expect once they come and sit down and sit with you?
So we work with companies. Typically, we don't work with startups anymore, really. I do advise a couple of startups, and I was recently asked to join the board of a company that works with female entrepreneurs. But we typically work with companies that are 6 figures in revenue per year or above. So roughly 10 to 20 grand a month and above. And they want to grow to 7 figures or even 8 or 9 figures a year. And so it's less about how much money they're making and more about what their goal is and their commitment to hitting that goal, right? Because if you're committed to hitting that goal, it doesn't matter where you are. It's all about where you're going. And us being able to add more fuel to the fire. If you don't have any fire, then that's a little bit more difficult to do, right? So I can't give you the fire. But if you got the basic, you got the fuel in the fire in your belly, and you're ready to hit the accelerator, as they say, all gas, no brakes, right? We're trying to get you in the mix that way. To expect to work with us, right? My company runs on a no pitch policy. So we're not ever going to pitch you. When you reach out to us, we're going to see where you are, and we're going to see what is the best fit for supporting you and where you want to go. Because I don't want to work with anybody that doesn't want to work with us. And we only, again, I was just talking about being surrounded by people that are thinking at a certain level. I only want to be around people that are thinking at a certain level. I want people that are committed to creating outsized influence, outsized impact through their businesses, that want something greater, that want to leave something greater than when they came into this world. And so our company is all about supporting people who want to do that, right? If you want to think at a higher level, if you want to move at a higher level, if you want to see the world in a completely different way that's going to allow you to shift through it at a different space, to leave a legacy of wealth for your family, for the ones that you care about, to make your name synonymous with the icons in the world, whether you are or not, if that's your desire, then we should have a conversation, because that's what we're about, supporting people who want to be at that level, to help them achieve the things they want most for themselves, create those outcomes in the world and in their lives.
Hey, what's the name of your podcast and where we can find it?
Yeah, man. So I actually have 2 podcasts. Power Lunch podcast is available right now. It actually just streams on YouTube and Facebook and LinkedIn. So, but if you search Power Lunch podcast, or you search Icon Status, which is our channel, it's hosted there. You can see the episodes we got there. We've got some great guests. Everybody from Steve Sims, Andre Norman, Kendall Ficklin, Seth Godin was a guest last summer. We're going to drop that episode soon. Some amazing people. So we have some really great conversations, some great insight. It's not just the business tactics. It's also about learning the personal stories of these people and how you can apply those personal lessons to yourself as an entrepreneur, so you can be able to grow. And the other podcast is called Breaking Orbit Podcast, which is based off of my book, as my little one comes in, my youngest.
All right. Young entrepreneur.
Yes, the boss in training.
All right.
So the Breaking Orbit podcast is based on my book, Breaking Orbit, Rip Out of the Regular by Unearthing the Power Within.
She's beautiful, by the way.
Thank you. Say thank you.
Thank you. Oh, wow.
I know your daddy for a long time. We went to school together.
Yep. We were friends. Long time. Yes. Uh-huh.
What you were saying?
Yeah, the Breaking Orbit podcast is based on the book Breaking Orbit. It's about helping people to discover how to discover their gift, I believe that everyone is created with a unique and powerful gift, a capacity to impact the world. And we're not taught how to do that, right? We're all unique in our own way. And just like we all have a unique fingerprint, we have a special capacity in our lives to be able to influence the world. And when we understand what that is, we learn how not to only get out of our own way, but also to be able to unleash exponential impact into the world, right? We're all unique in our own design. And just like birds are designed to fly, and it's effortless for them to be able to do that. And for fish, it's effortless to be able to swim. Human beings have their own effortless superpower. And many of us, most of us, in fact, don't ever really understand what that superpower is. But we were all created with it. And once we understand that, we are able to understand our purpose in life, how to create more meaning and significance in the world through what we're doing. And really, that's one of the biggest things that creates burnout, that creates frustration, that causes people to quit, is because they're trying to build something that is not aligned with who they really are, who they were designed to be. So on the podcast, we talk about that. In the book, we kind of break down the 9 ways to discover your gift, the 3 laws of giftedness, and understanding how you can unleash that impact that you were meant to do in every aspect of your life.
What's the name of the book again?
It's called Breaking Orbit, Rip Out of the Regular by Unearthing the Power Within. And it's available on Amazon. You search Breaking Orbit, Frederick Douglass Bussey.
Now, I know I see your daughter there, and she's letting you know it's time to go. I just want to ask you a question. As an African-American father, what does fatherhood mean to you, especially being a father of Black children?
You know, I think that for fathers in general and for Black fathers in particular, I think there's a lot of pressure these days, especially to get it right, quote unquote, right? We want to engineer and make sure that we are building these great children that are going to be great human beings and contribute to the world. But I think one of the most powerful things that we underrate for Black men is actually the thing that we get blamed for the most, and we get little credit for when we actually apply it, and that is being present, right? Whenever you hear the story about kids, adults who have had daddy issues, right? It's when my father wasn't there, or if he was there, he was barely there. And so for me, I've learned that the most valuable thing I can give to my children is my presence. Being fully present in conversations, being present in the home, being present in parenting conversations, being present in their schooling, in their education, being present in their lives in every way. So that I do this thing, and we do in business, but I do it with my kids. I call it future pacing. And so in different situations, I'm always placing myself 20, 30 years in the future and thinking about them in this moment. How will they remember this moment? How present was I with them? Did they see me where I was always on my phone, or I wasn't talking to them, or I was dismissive, or I was always running out? Or how was I with them? How present was I, in that regard? And I think that's probably the most important thing. We can beat ourselves up. 1 second, sweetheart. We can beat ourselves up because we're not perfect, or we want to do these amazing things or make more money, or whatever the case may be. And in reality, when we're looking back at it, I think the thing that we most value about our parents is that they were there, that they were present with us, right? They gave us themselves, because that's, at the end of the day, that's all you're really going to leave with people anyway. No matter how much money you make, if you don't leave the essence of who you are with them, the money will never be a substitute for the void that your presence could have filled. So I think that's probably the takeaway that I would share for any Black father, parent really, but especially for fathers, because our presence means something different than a mother's presence does. Mothers are there for nurturing and comfort and things of that nature. But a father represents a certain level of stability and security. And we get our sense of love from our mothers, but we get our confidence from our fathers, And so if your father is present there, you have a level of confidence that you can achieve certain things because you feel seen. You know, there's a centering that you can have that's, not really there with in the same way with mothers, I would say.
Definitely. One last question before I let you go. Who's winning the chip this year for the NBA Finals? I'll put you on the spot.
Yo, so I'm a Golden State Warriors fan, man. I've been that way before the bandwagon. I'm not betting against them for the simple reason that the league is so bunched up right now. And I know a lot of people made moves. I think, obviously Phoenix getting KD was a big deal, but I think they got less deep. Losing Mikal Bridges is going to be huge for them. They're not as great of a defensive team without him. The Clippers they're stacked. I know they just added Russell Westbrook. I think Russell might be a subtraction by addition, maybe in a certain way. I just can't bet against the Warriors because they've done it before. They've been there so many times, and I think if everybody's healthy, I'm not going to bet against my boys.
Gotcha. That's a great answer. I would think until someone knocks them off, then they're the favorites, so to speak. Right. So that's who I'm going, even though I'm a Knicks fan. So I'm just being realistic. They won it last year, and I think until someone knocks them off, you got to come and get it. You got to take it from them. So, but the West is stacked, and they got some people, some formidable opponents out there. So, I would say look out for the Lakers, and it should be a good, interesting finals. Looking forward to the outcome. But definitely, Frederick, I just want to thank you again for sharing a lot of information. I'm gonna just tell you a few takeaways real quickly. One, a wise person told me one time. He was like, you could always tell when a child is loved by just looking at him. And I could see that your daughter is loved, right? And the other thing I'm going to take away is that I could tell the effect of information that you've taken in, because you speak very adequately, and you're speaking in a way that people can understand. A lot of times, people talk over people, right, when they have a certain type of knowledge base. And I think that the way that you communicate is very, very effective. So I just want to salute you in the field that you are in and communicating to people to help them in a needed area. And also that, people can learn, so if they've reached a status where they're trying to grow exponentially, start making millions. If they're making, $20,000, $30,000, they can come to you and they can say, hey, I need some help, and you can get them over that hump. So we're encouraging people who are watching to go and check out Icon Status for your business needs. And we also encourage you to go and check out the book on Amazon, Brig and Orbit. And anything else that you're promoting?
Listen, I've got a Facebook group for 6 and 7 figure entrepreneurs called the 7 Figure Circle. It's a free Facebook group. We've got a ton of trainings and stuff in there. I always encourage people to go and join that. We've got master classes, content we're putting in there daily, things to be able to support people on their journey. That is completely free. We've got other levels of investment you can join, but definitely do that. Please check out the YouTube channel, like and subscribe, Icon Status. We're adding to the catalog there. A lot of great information is there as well. We're going to continue to be building that. And yeah, follow me on Instagram, FREDRICK.Bussey, Twitter, Frederick Bussey, Facebook, look me up over there. I love to be able to connect with you and support you in your journey of entrepreneurship, just building a life of impact and freedom and meaning and significance for yourself and the ones you love.
Definitely. Thank you again, Frederick Douglas Bussey, Icon Status. You were excellent. Thank you again for taking the time to stop by CJ Cares Podcast.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thanks, brother.
All right.